Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. Finally, if you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide, available on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Most homeowners don't have the time or expertise to properly take care of their home, which causes costly issues to arise. That's where Cura Home Maintenance comes in. We're a full-service, routine maintenance company that was developed by a certified home inspector. Each quarter, we service our clients' homes following manufacturer's recommendations to properly maintain all the necessary appliances. We provide the materials and expertise to prolong the life of your property, creating a healthy and efficient environment for your family. From top to bottom, we'll maintain and service your home. To get started, we have a property inspection to determine what needs to be maintained, and a maintenance plan is created based on your preferences. From refrigerator coils to filters, vents, and drains, we do it all, and we do it well. Contact us today for your free routine maintenance inspection, and never worry about your maintenance again.
Ananth, I like that setup you got there. Now, is that a green screen or is that a real office? What are we doing?
That is actually, we got like brick and mortar going on here. So it is the real office. This is our MOLLI headquarters in Toronto.
I like it. It looks good. Plus, you look sharp. You're looking good with that jacket and stuff on. Looking good, my friend.
I appreciate that. Flatter will get you everywhere with me, I think.
Now, is that your normal? Is that your normal dress, or you're a little sharper today because you were going to be on camera? Or is that good? Is that normal for you?
I am trying to dress the part, if you will. But I do tend to wear a jacket. No, I'm not. I don't like ties, so I try to stay away from the ties, but a jacket helps a little bit to spruce up what I make up for, what I lack here, I make up for with clothing, I suppose.
Does anybody wear ties? Seeing somebody with a tie on now is rare, isn't it?
It is absolutely. You almost feel like, oh, this is like it sets the meeting to be even more formal than you'd expect, right? It adds a little bit of gravitas if you're wearing a tie. Gone are the days with ties and a three-piece suit, I think, and I don't think they're returning anytime soon.
I live in Colorado, so if I see somebody in a suit here, I assume they're like going to a wedding or a funeral. Like, that's it. Everybody's super casual. You live in Canada, in Toronto, you said, right?
I do, yes.
Absolutely. Okay, is that where you're from?
No. So I've been all over the place. Actually, I was born in India, and then shortly after that, my father was positioned in Zambia and Africa. I spent most of my childhood in Africa. In Zambia, and then we came to Canada shortly afterwards in the early 90s, and after that we set up Toronto as home.
So did you graduate high school then in Canada, or?
High school was in Canada, but like elementary was all done in Africa.
How about that? Okay, very good. Where was your father from then in India? Whereabouts? Can you get more specific?
Yeah, so he was in Madras, Chennai. Now, so he was there, chartered accountant by trade, worked for a bank, and also associated with doing like senior executive roles with the oil company out of Italy. So that's why he got positioned in Africa, and then our family moved there and lived there for quite a lot of time until it got a little bit unstable, and then we moved to Canada quickly.
Now, was Canada a job transfer for him, or he just chose that for lifestyle?
So it was mostly at the time when we were around the mid-90s. It started to get a little bit unsettled for for expats in Africa. So he
I
was
see.
looking to move somewhere. It would either go back to India or go to the US or Canada. And we had family that come and settled. So he kind of just, again, reinvented himself. So, there's a lot of that reinvention. There's no job, no safety net there, kind of transplanted the family over. So,
Wow.
I respect him for that, kind of taking that leap of faith. And
Totally.
he was a senior executive at a company, kind of left it all behind and moved to Canada to start from scratch. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. Wow. Plus, how about that first winter in Canada after you moved up there? Where you're like, what the hell is this? This is crazy.
Yeah, there were lots of stories where we first landed, we went to just do groceries, and we thought it was going to be no big deal. So we just landed. It was one weekend. We didn't have a car, didn't have anything. We were taking public transit to go get groceries. And we went to the grocery store, came out, and suddenly there's a snowstorm, and we had these thin little African windbreakers on, and we were freezing. And it was the kindness of a stranger that saw us and huddled in a bus shelter, like put them in the back of the car and drove us home. So it was great. It was a great exposure to Canadian hospitality, but also the winter.
Pretty cool. And your siblings and your mom, tell me a little bit about the rest of the family.
Yeah, my sister, she's a lawyer, has her own family now in Toronto, and my mom was a Montessori school teacher for a long time. And then she also ran a store for a little bit, but I think teaching was her passion. And again, also in Toronto, not too far away.
Wow, your parents must be super proud. I mean, you ended up getting your doctorate and being an educator, and now an entrepreneur and a business owner, and your sister's a lawyer. And meanwhile, they did all that after they just moved to Canada and had to start over. Like, wow, that's pretty impressive.
Well, they will, being Asian parents, they will never say that they're proud of any of us. That's for sure. And I don't think it matters how old we get, it's just never going to come out of their mouth. But yeah, they sacrificed a lot, and we were very fortunate indeed to come here and start when we did.
Isn't that interesting? The culture difference, right? So your dad's not like always hugging on you. Oh, Ananth, you're so awesome. Great job. Not a lot of that, huh?
There's not a lot. There's a lot of so do you know this person so and so, they're doing this, and so it's there's a lot more of that than there is good job. I think and not that there's a lack of love, it's just not there's a cultural dynamic there in context that's really different in our space.
Not only culturally, but just the age, just when they were born, I think has a lot to do with it too, right? My dad, who is gone now, was born in 1937. And yeah, just a different mentality. I kept thinking before I started recruiting from Riderflex, I ran a couple of companies as a CEO and COO. And I remember when I got this job as a president for a furniture company in DC. And that was my first big C-level job, right? And I thought, man, this is going to be that one time when Dad finally says, "Great job," And I call him up and I'm telling him all about it, this and that, and he's like, "Okay, well, make sure you don't do this wrong. Make sure you do this, man." So I'm like, "Okay, can you just take me good job one time, please?"
Yeah, that's about the same discussion of so who's gonna do this, and be careful. And I remember there was one discussion where it was all about at the time there were a lot of these phishing scams going around, and so this is around the same time where I took charge. It's like, how's your IT infrastructure and security? I'm like, I guess we're over the announcement. I will talk. It is in perfectly good condition. Thank you for your concern. Yeah, it's you gotta love them. They have they keep steering us in the right path, I suppose.
Yeah, totally. So what was the plan? Did you want to be a doctor? Did you what was your plan going into college? Was that all laid out and you followed this exact plan, or talk to me.
Yeah, that's a great if you told me, heck, if you told me even 7 years ago that I would be the CEO of MOLLI Surgical, a company that's now kind of global, I would have laughed you out of the room. That was not a thing. That was not on my horizon of things that I was prepared to like imagine myself doing.
Because your undergrad was in engineering, right?
It was, yeah, I was in
Yeah.
biomedical engineering.
Okay.
And that I think was one of the few things even as a child I knew I kind of wanted to do. It was because I was in Africa at the time. There's a confluence of multiple events. One of them being my childhood friend had pediatric cancer and passed away, and then my grandmother passed away very close to each other. So I knew oncology was a space that it touched my life very early and profoundly.
Okay.
So I knew how much of how cancer can affect people. But I also recognized like I loved tinkering. I loved breaking things apart, building things. I was always like destroying clocks and things around the house and not able to quite get them back together again. But I love tinkering. So that was a big thing. So I knew I wanted to do something that was building, and pure memorization was never my thing. So med school wasn't really, I was not interested. But this idea of making engineering into medicine was something really cool. And the one thing I do say is we really got 3 shows. We had Airwolf, A-Team, four, MacGyver, and the $6 Million Man. And the $6 Million Man was the one where I was like, oh, you can use engineering to like enhance the human ability to do things and give strength. I'm like, that's really cool. Maybe, that's what I want. And those that, it's funny, those things kind of stick with you throughout. And so even through high school, I was always kind of drawn towards the technology associated with the delivery of medicine. Then I went straight into biomedical engineering at U of T.
Gotcha. Okay. So no need to get an MBA or whatever. You just went right to med school or right to get your PhD.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. The plan was then I kind of went through engineering, and interestingly, during engineering, I was fortunate to have a placement one summer at a radiation oncology facility in Toronto through the University of Toronto.
I see.
Where I fell in love with like linear accelerators, MR, CTs, like technology, that the cutting edge technology, and how you can use that to improve the reproducibility and accuracy of treatment. So I started to go down this path of like, I want to get involved with medical physics as a profession. And that kind of led myself through to getting a PhD. I started off undergrad, no clue where I wanted to be, but it was just, keeping your mind open to some possibility. And I found this field fascinating. So then I got my PhD, did a residency for 2 years to kind of get trained in being a clinical medical physicist, and then came back and started overseeing a medical physics program where they implant radioactivity in patients to treat prostate cancer and breast cancer and gynecological cancers. So that became my focus, is on how do we use guidance and imaging to really deliver cancer treatments precisely and in a targeted fashion. And I was obsessed. So I was looking at research programs and developing at that point once I reached that level.
And how about your relationships socially? Were you married or in a walk me through timeline for your own family or relationship?
So I think I met my wife Moni in grad school. So it was in grad school. And it was interesting. Like she's much smarter than I am. The first time I met her, she was best friends with she was roommates with one of my good friends in undergrad. And I was asking her to help me prepare for one of the defense or committee, I forget, some big presentation. And she brought Moni along, and she just destroyed me. And I found her so annoying because she kept asking me so many questions that I did not know the answers to, that I just got really frustrated. So then, time passed after that event because I didn't want to speak to her again. I'm like, why'd you bring her? I'm going to fail my exam. But time passed. We met each other on social occasions, and lo and behold, like I think towards I think we got married I think 2 years after, 2 years
Okay.
after that
All right.
meeting. And so starting out my career, Molly and I, she's with me ever since, and I've been a very strong supporter.
So you've been married 15 years. What, how long?
Oh, you're asking dangerous questions.
uh,
I'm just gonna make sure I don't tell her this.
yeah.
I think we're coming up in 15 years very soon. I think it's
Okay.
around 13 right now.
Okay. All right. Cool. Any children?
Yeah, we've got two lovely girls. One's an 11-year-old and one's an 8-year-old. Both of them as different as can be in personalities, but yeah, they are the reason for me to do anything, really.
Yeah. Very good. You said 11 and 8. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You're still in that. You're still in the magical period right there. I always call it, from like 5 to like 11. That's good right in there. Right before puberty. Right. And because once puberty happens and they get to be 13, whatever, oh man, it's a totally different ball game.
Oh, it's fun. So this is where I'm a physicist and an engineer, and I have two girls, and I am so fortunate every day that my wife's a child psychiatrist. So like anything to do with feelings, immediately I like blue screen, and I'm like, please tell me what I should do in this scenario, because I
Yeah.
clearly don't have the right idea. So yeah, it's a very good setup I got there.
Now, you see, I try that with my wife too. Like I've been married to Kim now. This is my second marriage, so I learned a lot from my first screw up. Uh, and I will try with my wife. I'll be like, just tell me what you want me to say or do right now. You know, now I've tried that. Now I've learned more recently. Sometimes it's best to just say nothing and go to the garage.
Sounded
Just say nothing, because there are times where I'm, because the whole, the old adage where we're trying to fix it, we're trying to figure out what's wrong so we can fix it, and
Absolutely.
my wife's like, stop. She's like, stop. She's just like, stop, and I'm like, okay, well, what all right, I'm just gonna be quiet and go over here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Our instinct is to like give solutions versus just listen. And I'm like, what's the point
Yes.
of me listening if I can't provide solutions? But yes, that is I'm trying to do better, but clearly a lot of work ahead of me.
It's a tough job. So what you spent before you became an entrepreneur, so to speak, you had a job, I guess. You at Sunnybrook, you were there for a long time, and then you started teaching as well as a professor.
Yep.
How did you what happened? How'd you become an entrepreneur? Walk me through that. How'd you jump the creek there?
Oh, that's a leap of faith that it happened later than I assume a lot of your guests. So I was very much clinically driven. I wanted to improve care for patients,
Okay.
but also academically interested in and part of it is like, running a clinic, there is a sequence of things, and if you run a really good high quality clinic, things become very predictable and operate on time.
Okay.
That gives you bandwidth to try different things, to start to elevate the care. And so that's where academia became interesting for me. That was my avenue to like do new things and create new technologies. And I think it's important for the entrepreneurial side because it's the why. It wasn't necessarily I didn't want to become an entrepreneur, but it was a mechanism to expand impact. But the impact that I thought was
I see.
early on. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I see. Yeah. A
Yeah.
mechanism to expand impact. I'm going to use that line. I like that.
and I think that was, and so like the impact that we had was when I first started, I mentioned, I love medical physics in the sense of there's all this technology and it's about precision and like getting as much dose to treat patients as much as possible.
Okay.
But then towards the end of my, somewhere in the middle of my career, we started, doing these treatments on patients that were highly, highly effective. but
Okay.
involved them like placing applicators inside them staying overnight, and then removing these applicators. So it was a very traumatic experience for these patients.
Mm.
And so we came up with this new treatment where we would put them under, take it out, and they'd go home and they wouldn't even remember anything happened to them. And just that difference, the treatment effectiveness, unchanged. We didn't actually do anything in terms of outcomes, but their experience of treatment was so profoundly transformed. I was like, oh, there's something different here. There's a
Mm.
space for innovation that I previously not
Mm.
considered, where the patient experience of treatment is just as important as the treatment itself. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I started doing a lot more research on using image guidance and different techniques to improve that quality of treatment. And so MOLLI kind of spun out from there. We heard a patient talking about her experience with wires in her breast. We heard about it, and I was like, oh, this doesn't sound right. So our team kind of went through approaches to discover a way that completely elevated the care for these patients.
Mm.
And it was a simple solution. And what was interesting about it, I was doing it purely academically, getting grants, trying to do this.
I see. All right.
Presented it at Sunnybrook to a bunch of donors as they walk by. So these are innovative research things. We're elevating the care locally. And my mind was really just about the research and doing this. But then a donor came by, if you're ready to commercialize this, give me a call. And it was that conversation that we like, hey, is this commercializable as a thing?
I
Is it just
see.
not one of those things that just stay at Sunnybrook and doesn't go? Is there a potential to have a
Mm.
global impact here?
Mm.
And that was the tipping point. So then after that, we were like, okay, let's look to patent and let's look to commercialize. And then the journey began on kind of commercializing this and building the company around it.
I see. Let me ask a few questions around the structure of things, because so who owned what, right? Like, you're working at Sunnybrook, you're an employee there, you're not an owner, right? You're at the University of Toronto doing research there. So the university's got their hands in it, Sunnybrook's got their hands in it.
Yeah.
And now you're going to create this new entity, this new company. And do you have everybody like, well, hold is everybody grabbing certain ownership pieces there? How'd that work?
You know what's very interesting? Like I would love to have been a fight with everybody super passionate and like, oh, but really it's a lot of in the Canadian healthcare or innovation ecosystem, there's a lot of risk. It's not the same as in the US, where people want to take exciting bets. And in Canada, the ecosystem is very risk averse. So you need to prove concepts out to basic certainty before people get super excited. So we were still at the very nascent stages. So it was very much me being actively in our team, and John Dillon, our co-founder, actively promoting this concept and trying to get people to support versus the other way around. So absolutely, in terms of ownership, the IP was all invented at Sunnybrook. They own some of the IP. We created this entity fully endorsed by Sunnybrook. And so we created it, and we licensed a lot of the IP from Sunnybrook, because a lot of arrangements have like licensing IP out of academic institutions. And then so now ours is completely separate, and we just have a licensing agreement with Sunnybrook at this point. But they're partners.
Sounds like the executives at Sunnybrook were okay with you doing this. They never tried to block. They never were like, hey man, no, we need you over here. Or they were supportive the whole time, huh? Okay.
They were fun, I've been very fortunate. They were, because there was this everybody talks about a moment where you're sitting down and you have to make a choice.
Yes.
Am I going to carry on this path of academic clinical work, tenured, keep going down this path, or make a leap of faith and jump for Sunnybrook? And I was torn, but everybody at Sunnybrook and senior leadership was like, this has got huge legs and potential for growth.
Okay.
Go for it. Like, not a single person was stay
That's
here,
good. That's great.
Take a risk. Like they said, they were all super supportive, and it's been wonderful.
That's awesome. Now, are you still active as a professor at the university as well?
I am, albeit a lot less than I used to be. So I do have
Okay.
some grad students that are currently going through a graduate program,
Okay.
and have their theses. But this time, as opposed to primary supervisor, I'm playing more as an advisor on projects versus like having direct grad students anymore.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Now's probably a good time. Let's do an overview. So MOLLI, MOLLI, and it's mollisurgical.com. That's the best website, right? Or
That's
best
the website.
URL. Yeah. mollisurgical.com. If you don't mind, for the listeners, hit them. Give the 3-minute overview of MOLLI. Go for it.
Absolutely. Oh, love it. MOLLI Surgical is a wire-free localization technology. And the reason I say that is the vast majority of patients that have breast cancer right now have that hooked wire procedure, which is where they come in the morning, they have this fishing hook type wire placed in their breast, and the surgeon then kind of palpates to find the cancer and remove it. Instead, we replace all of that by implanting a tiny 3 millimeter size permanent magnet the size of a sesame seed. And then we have a wand and tablet that act like a precision GPS and provide the surgeon with true 3-dimensional guidance. So they know where their wand is, they know where the marker inside the cancer is, and they can immediately get there with unprecedented precision and efficiency. So now surgeons can, not only is the patient experience completely improved because now they have no wire protruding their breast, they can have this marker implanted up to 30 days in advance of surgery on their schedule, and they can come for surgery on their schedule. So it's just, giving back this autonomy to the patient and also the surgical and radiology teams. So you see these massive benefits across patient, radiologists, physicians, and even health systems in terms of savings.
Wow. Is it just for, I'm assuming you use it for other things besides breast cancer patients, right? I'm assuming, but is that your primary target? What else is it used for, if you don't mind?
Cool. Yeah. So we started off in breast because this is where there was a clear link. And I think this is really finding technology. We're cleared for all soft tissues.
Okay.
The idea behind it is in radiology now, with all the imaging that we have, we're able to detect smaller and smaller cancers that are really hard to find surgically when you just your eyes, right? Eyes and touch. So MOLLI is like a bridge. You mark this thing with this 3 millimeter, you mark your lesion with a 3 millimeter marker, and then in surgery, you're able to find it with unprecedented precision. And I think that problem exists in breast, lung, colorectal. There's a lot of soft tissues out there where this is fully applicable. We've done cases in thoracics, colorectal applications. We've even had an instance where a small 8-year-old girl was playing football with her dad and fell on a garbage bag and had a little piece of glass embedded in her leg. And as opposed to exploring for this tiny fragment, a surgeon placed a MOLLI marker and was able to then remove it with unprecedented, like without any little incision, found and removed.
Wow.
Suspected region.
Wow. Why wouldn't you use this? Why? I mean, why is it for all? I guess when you're explaining it to me, I'm thinking, okay, well, if my wife was going in breast cancer stuff, and I wouldn't want the wires taken, I'd want to use the MOLLI procedure. Like, why wouldn't every patient just do this?
And I think it's incumbent on us is to get the word out that this is possible. Like I think a lot of it is the wire has been it's 1970s technology. It's been around forever. It is there. So now it's incumbent on us to kind of elevate that standard of care across the globe, really.
I see. They always say follow the money, and the money makes decisions. Is there something tied to insurance companies or a manufacturer or something with the wire where the doctor's like, the surgeon's like, nah, I don't want to switch to the MOLLI? Is there something money driven around this?
I mean, I think right now reimbursement is actually looks upon this favorably. Like in terms of the level of efficiency you get by decoupling your implantation from surgery, there's reimbursement that actually makes it, there's equipoise between the wire technique and using something like MOLLI to improve the experience of patients. So reimbursement is there that actually facilitates having a patient get implanted on a separate day in a short pain, like really innocuous implanting procedure, and then having surgery on a separate day, versus the wire where they're in hospital all day under duress. And the other issue with that is, like, you can only do 4 cases. If you're really efficient, you only do 4 breast surgeries in a single day, versus if you do a MOLLI technique, we've had some places do up to 6 or 8 surgeries in a given day, because they implant that many, and the patient, they just come in and they are so efficient with the use of the technology that they're able to increase their throughput. So from a reimbursement and financial perspective, I think it is a compelling reason to transition to MOLLI.
Seems like a no-brainer. Who's your customer? Are you selling to insurance companies? Are you selling to hospitals? Are you selling to doctors? Who are you targeting?
I mean, the primary champions for this technology are the surgeons, because this device is really the first step of surgery, right? So
I see.
This helps them have more reproducible surgery. It makes it easier for them to kind of plan out their surgical incisions so they're hidden and facilitate the best cosmetic results. So our primary target surgeons, but then radiologists are also a critical component of this, because they implant these markers. And so ensuring that they're taken care of and their needs are assessed and valued are also important. In fact, the start of the surgery is the placement of the marker. So if that's not accurately placed, then it compromises surgery. To that end, we also have come up with technology that's specifically targeting radiologists to give them the ability to remove a marker that's not appropriately placed and adjust it, which is very unique and new. So we really are looking to both of these stakeholders to then drive decision making at their institutions.
Thank you for explaining that. I'm going to ask you some commoner layman's terms. I'm going to, I'm not going to speak to you in doctor language here, so forgive me, but it's probably good for the listeners. I want to make sure I understand something. MOLLI is the technique or the device, or when you use the word MOLLI, is that the name of the device you're implanting, or is it the name of the company? Help me understand. I want to make sure I know.
Yeah, no, it's a great clarifying question. So the little magnet that we implant into the breast is called the MOLLI marker. That's what we implant into the breast.
Okay.
We have a wand, which is the MOLLI wand, and the MOLLI tablet. That is the system that we use to then detect it surgically. And then the surgeon then will find it with the system and then accurately remove it during surgery. So that's kind of the piece of it. And, localization is roughly the procedure around which it's the envelope name that we use to describe this overall procedure. Okay.
Why wouldn't you just, when you go to the hospital and you have if you have the MOLLI, the radiologist is putting it in you, right? Injecting you.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you just all in one day? Okay, well, let's move you from radiology over to the surgery room and just have the doctor remove whatever's right then. Why wouldn't you just do it all in one day?
And I think it can be done that way as well. The difficulty is now hospitals are like a 3-legged stool. Something goes wrong in one department, the whole stool will collapse, right? I think that's the difficulty and so giving radiology the opportunity to just optimize their flow is actually just better for patients, because then patients come in and they're out on time every time. Similarly with surgery, you come in, you have your surgery, you're out. So you really want them to be independent of each other. The second you connect them and one becomes dependent on the other, if anything is delayed here, everything is delayed for the entire time. So there is a need to do that.
Okay, next question is, whatever the doctor is removing with the wand, is it is it always small enough is the area always small enough to do that? What if the area is bigger? I don't understand that part.
So so the little lesion, the little mark that we place it right into the center of a cancer.
Okay.
Or you can actually place it on the edges of the cancer to mark its extent. So if it's a little larger, you can mark the boundary with multiple markers. And so what the surgeon will do is they'll use the wand, find the markers, and then they'll use their electrocautery to go in and then cut out the specimen and then take it out. But the nice thing about having these points to kind of orient them as to where the cancer is then they can plan methods to hide the scar, sometimes in the armpit or underneath the breast, so you can't even see evidence of cancer. And this is really kind of what drove us to be in this space in the first place. Is imagine there's no reminder that you've had surgery, like no trace of any type of treatment, and no reminder that you've had cancer. Like that is the goal for these type of procedures.
So less scarring and more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. And the cost is, as a patient, I'm not really going to know the difference. I'm not really going to see a difference.
That's right. Yeah. From a patient, it'll be fully reimbursed. It's captured within the reimbursement. And in fact, there are strategies that hospitals can use to improve their overall efficiency to benefit from that as well.
I see. I'm going to ask you another question. So I get regular injections in my back and neck for arthritis pain. And when I get about every 6 months. And so when I go in to get my injections, I think I go to radiology, and I think he is using the CT scan to find out where to poke me. Does that sound right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is before the MOLLI marker, if they're not using the MOLLI marker, is that what doctors are doing? They're putting the patient in the CT scan and figuring out where to cut out the cancer?
So for non-breast cancers, they'll use CT and oh, you mean before MOLLI even existed, you mean?
Yeah. I guess that's the question. Yes.
Yeah. So before MOLLI existed, they kind of used the CT. They'd have a rough guide as to where things were, and they'd remove it. Or what they would do is they would mark it with a wire. They take this like literally, it looks like a fishing hook. They'd use CT, find the area, place this wire, and then the surgeon would kind of just follow the wire to the cancer and then remove it. In the breast space, they use mammography and to place these markers. And so historically, they would place these wires under mammography. Now they'll put the MOLLI in under mammography or ultrasound as the two imaging techniques to place these to localize it. And then in surgery, they go and find what the radiologist has placed.
Have you been able to show with the results that the MOLLI markers are more accurate for removal of cancer than the old wire system?
So the wire system works really well, and there's a lot of history with it, right? So in terms of accuracy, it works. I'm not going to suggest that it doesn't work. It works really well for accuracy. I think the big benefit that we're seeing, and it's more anecdotal than it is like in a clinical trial, is that surgeons are able to remove the lesion, and they're able to do it with less tissue sometimes, and a lot than they were with the wire technique.
Okay.
And we have been able to demonstrate is the patient's experience of care is vastly improved. In fact, when we first created MOLLI, there was one patient that had a wire and they had a MOLLI, and I've never had this before, but she wrote us a 2-page letter thanking us for developing the technology.
Wow.
So super motivating. Because she said, like, compared to what I had before, this is just revolutionary. And
it sounds like a no-brainer. Do you think the reason it hasn't spread faster for all surgeons to use it is because either they're just old school and they don't like change, or because it just takes time to get the word out, or both?
I think once we spend time with the surgeon, they're aware. I think it's getting the word out is a big component of it. And then also recognizing like they're used to a particular workflow and it's efficient for them. So telling them how they can incorporate this and make it still financially feasible for them. So there is that you're not wrong that there's a financial piece there, but you need to be able to incorporate this into your workflow so that it is compelling. And the nice thing is this technology, it doesn't have to be implemented in the white towers of academic excellence. We have sites that do 1,000 cases a year and sites that do less than 50 that implement the technology, right? So we've really made it so it's adaptable across platforms. I think now it's incumbent on our team to try and get the word out as much as possible to try and improve throughout the US.
Okay, very good. What's the business model? Are you selling the markers, the wand, the tablet, and then reselling the markers? How are you making money?
Yeah, the way we make money is being incredibly flexible to the needs of the customer. And I know that's the cop-out answer, but it is, we have multiple methods. And I keep telling our team, we should be able to work with these customers in a way that's incredibly flexible. The nice thing is we manufacture everything. So we have a lot of levers to pull. We're not just a distributor of technology. We make it ourselves. So we can pull levers to accommodate the specific pricing needs of a customer. So if a customer can't afford the tablet and the wand and the capital units, we end up just elevating the price of the consumable, which is the markers, and they just buy that, and we'll place the capital for free. If they can afford some capital money right out of the gate, then we'll drop the price on the marker, so it makes their ongoing operating costs fairly minimal. So we have a ton of flexibility, and one size does not fit every customer out there, but being a direct manufacturer gives us a lot of levers to pull.
Now now I understand why you might have some surgeons blocking this, because the entry expense into the tablets and the thing, there's an initial hit to their bottom line to kind of get this new thing going, right? Am I accurate there?
That's right. And that's where we actually, to accommodate that though, we have placement agreements where, if you're interested in doing, bottom line is if they're interested in adopting the technology and they think it'll benefit their practice, we can also place the capital for free, and they will then benefit from the way we will benefit is by having a little bit more of a elevated marker pricing that's not too onerous, and they can then order markers, but we'll place the capital there. So we try to alleviate as much friction as possible.
Okay.
As long as it's fit, right? I think the key piece there is if the surgeon sees that there's a need and they believe in elevating their practice through the incorporation of MOLLI, we'll find a solution that works for them.
Very good. Is there a wait time? Are you out 2 or 3 months? Do you have plenty of inventory in stock to sell to a bunch more surgeons, or where are you at with that?
Oh, we are stocked and ready to go. I think one thing COVID-19 taught us was how to pay careful attention to our supply chains and keep them robust. So we can supply demand, no problem.
And are you manufacturing all in Canada or in the US, or whereabouts?
So all of the markers are predominantly manufactured in the US. Some of our assembly happens in Canada, but I'd argue 80% of even the capital equipment manufacturing happens in the US, and then as final assembly and packaging happens in Canada. Okay,
very good. Very good. It would help. The doctors would be, I'm sure you know this. I don't want to, I'm sure you have a strong marketing team behind you. The more women that tell their doctor, like, hey, I heard about this MOLLI thing. I want this, I'm
direct customers cannot be undervalued. I think that is absolutely a big piece of this story, is that even women not knowing that these alternatives exist, useful to get the word out so they're aware.
I guarantee you, when I get off this interview, I'm going to walk upstairs and I'm going to ask Kim about it, my wife, and I bet you she doesn't know. And this October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? And we just did I just did another interview with one of our executive recruiters who's stage 4, and she shared her whole story on the podcast, and she did not mention this. And so you're right. I think we gotta hopefully this podcast will help you. We got to get you more than 194 followers on your Facebook page. we got to help you get the word out.
Absolutely
Right.
right. I definitely appreciate that. I think it is very much about us getting the word out, getting out there, and the nice thing is, we have a very strong team in the US that are out there knocking on doors, but it helps. Anything to amplify I'd be incredibly grateful.
Where do you see this going? Okay, let's just look forward and say, wow, another 3-4 years, this becomes the primary thing people use for the breast cancer and the wire thing goes away. Where do you see, where else is it going to be implemented? What other devices, or, as an investor, I guess I would be saying, that's cool. I'm glad you got this. What's next? What are you doing with this?
I think part of our entire ethos is like, we have to just keep going. Like we have a commitment to coming up with a new clinically significant product every 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
So our next kind of venture is outside of the breast. I think leveraging the same platform, I truly think there is benefits in the thoracic space that would key off of some of the stuff we've already built. So we're looking into that area pretty specifically. And who knows, and a little bit beyond that, we're looking at expanding beyond just surgical interventions and maybe into radiation oncology, back to my home specialty a little bit, but expanding the company from being MOLLI Surgical to maybe perhaps MOLLI Medical.
Okay, I have a request. I want you to, this is what I'd like for you to invent next. You ready?
Please.
And I know we're almost out of time here, getting ready to wrap up. Let's produce a chip that can be implanted somewhere in your brain that tricks your brain into not recognizing pain.
Interesting.
If we, I know that the pharmaceutical companies forever have been trying to figure out, how to stop pain. In fact, the whole, epidemic with opioids and everything, I don't think there's evil people at Pfizer trying to create OxyContin to get everybody addicted. I do think they're like, we're trying to solve pain, like we're trying to solve pain. And then there was all these, terrible things that happen, side effects from the whole thing, because it's addictive. God, wouldn't it be great if you could put something and you could insert something surgically? Maybe it's a MOLLI, maybe it's you could put something that you got to be able to solve pain. There are so many people in the country in pain, addicted to pills. I feel like the whole damn country's on. I feel like everybody on the planet's on pills trying to stop pain of some kind. And if they're not on, I'm ranting for a second. And if they're not on pills, they're self-medicating with alcohol and other drugs. So
it's this tragic consequence of
right.
The danger of creating things for well-intentioned purposes, and then all of a sudden stuff takes a mind of its own, and it is the space we play in is, and not play, but like it is absolutely a heavy burden to wear, right? Like there is a lot of risks here. There is a lot of care that needs to be taken in how we build things, how we create things, and how they're used eventually. And as creators of technology, like I take full ownership on how it's finally used at the end state. So that's a great thing. I think you're absolutely right. Pain is an epidemic out there, and management of that is a huge space. And there's got to be strategies that are being developed. And that's you give me some ideas. So talk to my team. Let's see what we can brainstorm.
Well, you seem to me to be an authentic, passionate, caring man that, yes, you're a businessman, you want to make money, sure, but I can tell you're really passionate. Like, hey, we've created this thing that makes this better for the patient. Like it's less painful, it's less scarring, it's easier, it helps them. Like you're getting patients, you said the woman who wrote you the 2-page letter, like you didn't say, hey, last quarter we were up 20% on sales. You highlighted the 2-page letter, which tells me for you, it's about the human element of it, right? Which I think is wonderful. So if you know, if that's your mission, keep pushing forward with your brain power to help people in pain. Maybe you could do something with Molly to do that. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but anyway. So mollisurgical.com, right? mollisurgical.com, MOLLI, mollisurgical.com. And you can join the mailing list. They have Facebook, Twitter. They're on LinkedIn, YouTube channel with some videos on there. Anything else you want to mention, my friend? Any books, any podcasts, anything else you want to bring up?
We do have some patient resources as well through the Hope platform. It's a great resource where we have patients and physicians providing guidance and a lot of information for patients that have breast cancer or considering their options. And I do recently a very small webinar with surgeons as well, providing more to surgical communities and physicians resources on how to elevate their practices in care and think differently.
I appreciate it, sir. Congratulations on everything you guys are building and doing. So it sounds like a wonderful thing. So congratulations.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thanks so much for the chat.